haze of a drunken hour, but heaven knows I'm miserable now. I was looking for a job and then I found a job, and heaven knows I'm miserable now in my life. Why do I give valuable time to people who don't care if I
Hey, it's Dave, and welcome to Classic Basslines. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the bass line on Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now by the Smiths. I'm going to talk about why I think this is such a cool bass line, and later in the video, I'll play a slowed down version of it for you and give you some playing tips. The bass tab for this is linked in the description below, and if you want to skip ahead to the slow part, you can do that using the play bar. Of course, if you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. So this bass line, like all of the Smiths bass lines, is played by Andy Rourke. And the more I listen to Andy Rourke and the more of his lines I learn, the more I'm just kind of blown away. Andy is really a great compositional bassist. And by that I mean the way he plays bass is really a part of the song. And I mean that in two senses of the word. One, it's a part just, he's not improvising. He's got a bass part. He knows it. He plays it. He plays the verse the same way every time. When they do a live show, he plays the bass part. But it's also a part just in the larger sense of the word, in that I actually think it's just like a part of the song. Imagine a Smiths cover band where the bassist didn't know the music and was a good bass player, but just given a lead sheet with just chords on it. He'd be able to come up with good notes, they would lock in with the drums, they would work with the guitar part, it would sound fine. But it wouldn't sound like the Smiths. And songs like this really highlight to me why it's such a shame that Andy Rourke wasn't given writing credit for the Smiths recordings. I'm going to highlight two different parts of this song that I think really show this off. Take a look at the first verse on this tune. There's some fantastic guitar playing by Johnny Marr all over this tune, of course. And later in the song, we get to parts where there's, 2, 3, probably more guitar tracks layered over each other. And he's really creating a symphony. But on the first verse, there's just one guitar that I can hear, and Johnny Marr is just more or less playing the chords. And he's not doing anything fancy. So the musical elements that are really driving the tune at that point is just Morrissey's vocal and Andy Rourke's bass line. And Andy Rourke's bass line to me is what really keeps the song moving. I'll play the first 4 bars for you. So what's happening here? Let's take a look. The chords are just 1, 6, 2, 4, 5. So that's F sharp major 7, D sharp minor 7, G sharp minor 7, and then B, and then C. What I really love about this is the way Andy connects all those chords, and he creates motion between the chords. So on the 1 chord, he slides up to the 6, and then he walks down the scale from the 4 to lead to the 6 chord. Then on the 6th chord, so that's kind of standard, but just I love that you have the dotted notes and then those quarter notes. which just really helps the song move along to the next chord to me. So that's what he plays over the 2 chord. And that's the most basic thing yet. But even that, you know, Johnny Marr's not changing chords there. That's just a G sharp minor 7 chord. But Andy adds the little descending motion there, which again helps keep the song moving. And then you have your B and your C sharp. And listen to this. You know, that's funky. I love that. I love that. Now, to me, this all could just seem like simple stuff that maybe you wouldn't notice, but it's really, to me, where the magic is. Because imagine playing this song with a less creative bassist, or maybe just like producer or bandmates who are like, no, keep it simple, you're playing too much. You know, the song could have easily sounded like this. And you know what? There are tons of hit records that have bass playing like that. There are tons of great bassists who play like that. And playing like that and doing it well and knowing when to do it is not easy. And it's really a lot of the job of being a bass player sometime. But to me, this just highlights the brilliance of Andy Rourke, is that he heard these melodies and he heard this motion in there. This sounds to me like it's coming from Paul McCartney. You know, later on in the Beatles' careers, Paul McCartney would record the bass as the last thing he did on a song, which was so that he could just make the song move how he wanted to after everything else was pieced together. Andy Rourke probably didn't do that here, but you could see using that process coming up with some of these melodies. Just little things that help the song move along. Now, the other part of this line that really stands out is, of course, the tenths. What are the tenths? Tenths, if you don't know, by the way, are just named after the interval because they're 10 notes of the major scale apart. So just 1, 2. It's just a third but an octave up. Anyways, it's kind of this like gimmicky thing that bass players learn, but never really has much application in full band settings. It's kind of like, yeah, it works if you're playing solo bass or sometimes if you're playing a duo, but most of the time there's not a good place for a bass player to do tenths when he's got a guitarist and drums and everything else going on. So one, I think it's just cool that Andy Rourke found a place to put tenths in like a hit song. Drop me a line in the comment if you know other hit songs that use tenths, because I want to hear them. Because as far as I know, it's this song and it's Walk on the Wild Side. I might be forgetting something. But so he found a way to use the tenths. I'm just going to play this line for you just so you can hear the beauty of this. Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So it's a beautiful line on its own, but it's also so cool to me for the way it interacts with Johnny Marr's playing. Because Johnny Marr is playing less chords than that bass line would imply. I've put the chords on the tab and I've done a little analysis on this. Now, pegging down what chords are happening on a Smiths tune is a whole process because, there's so much different stuff going on and Johnny Marr's always moving notes in and out of the chords. But, the basic structure of it to me is it's a B major chord. This, I think, is an F sharp chord, but you have this inversion here with the A sharp in the bass. Then you move up to the 6th chord, D sharp minor 7. Now here, Johnny Marr keeps playing the same chord, but Andy Rourke plays this underneath it, which just sort of like reharmonizes what Johnny Marr is doing. And I don't even really know what to call that. Then you're back down here, and this is a B chord, and then he moves up here, which, you know, you would think is an F sharp chord, F sharp, A sharp, but Johnny Marr is still just playing a B chord there, which means, again, now Andy Rourke's reharmonizing sort of what Johnny Marr is doing. And if he's playing a B chord, and this is happening, then it's kind of like a B major 7 with an F sharp in the bass. Then there's this, which is B, C, C sharp. And then that whole thing happens again. Now I'll play a slowed down version of all the different parts of the song for you. Stick around till after, and I'll have a couple pointers on how to play certain parts and how to use the capo. Okay, that's all the different parts of the song. Just a few things. If you're gonna tune up, make sure you do that under the advisement of a luthier, or maybe just get some really extra light gauge strings. Tuning up a whole step could put a lot of pressure on your neck, and you could warp it, so just be careful with that. If you're just gonna go with a capo, I use a Shub capo. It's really great because there's a knob on the back that lets you change the amount of pressure that it puts on the strings. So you can fit it around a bass neck or a guitar neck, and it helps keep the strings from going out of tune when you do that. On that note, if you haven't used a capo before, do be aware it can pull your strings out of tune, so you might just want to check tuning again after you do that. A little bit about how to play this one. Most of the time Andy Rourke uses a pick. On this one though, it's fingerstyle, which I think just gives a nice mellow sound. It's of course also fingerstyle because that's how you're gonna play these tenths here. Just a couple quick tips about some of the things. That bend in the beginning is really cool, and you want to make sure to grab that. That's just, he's on the G sharp and he bends it up to an A and then brings it back down to a G sharp. So the other thing is how to play tenths, both with your left hand and your right hand. In the left hand, I tend to do middle and pinky finger, but you could do it however you want. That could be first finger and pinky, first finger and third finger, whatever's comfortable to you. And then on the right hand, I tend to use index finger and ring finger. But Andy Rourke plays it with thumb and index finger. I feel like I have a little more finesse this way than, I feel a little more caveman-ish with the pinching motion like that. But just do what's comfortable for you and you can experiment. Okay, that's everything. I hope this was helpful for you, and stay tuned next week. More bass lines coming. Thanks.